Hello, my name is Kathy Sullivan, and I'm a program manager on the Visual Studio IDE team. I'm very excited to give you a tour through the new Visual Studio 2013 IDE. With Visual Studio 2013, it just gets better when your IDE is connected. New roaming support, notifications, and a new Visual Studio Updates experience means you get your fixes and features sooner. In this video, I'll show you the many new productivity improvements, how Visual Studio takes understanding your code to the next level, and also some other IDE features. Along the way, I'll explain how telemetry and customer feedback play an important role in what we build and improve in each release. After watching this video, be sure to check out the other series of videos that my colleagues have recorded. In these videos, you'll be able to maximize your productivity even more by going deeper into the connected IDE, code understanding, and performance. I'm going to give you a whirlwind tour of the IDE and cover everything from connecting the IDE to your personal profile and your developer services to new productivity enhancements in the editor. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive list of improvements that we've made, and this video just really scrapes the surface of all the functionality and enhancements in Visual Studio 2013. First, I'll talk to you about the connected IDE experience and how being connected just makes the IDE better. Then I'll show you some of the visual design updates that we've made and how you can more easily find your way around the IDE. Then I'll show you some of the really neat editor productivity enhancements that we've made. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the performance improvements we've made in 2013. Here we are in Visual Studio 2013. We know a lot of developers use Visual Studio on 2 or more devices. How many of you actually look forward to setting up a new machine and configuring Visual Studio to just the way you like it? Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and we realize that it is a challenge to recreate your customizations as well. With that in mind, Visual Studio now focuses on one individual with multiple devices. You can now start on a machine with a default installation, pull down your customized settings, and take care of product registration right from within the IDE for all your Visual Studio products. Now, by logging into the IDE with one identity, which is your Microsoft account, you get the ability of synchronizing your settings. So in the upper right-hand corner, you'll now notice that you can sign into the IDE. So let's go and sign in. I'm going to use my Microsoft account, but if you have an account that's associated with maybe an MS-DAN subscription, you should use that account. All right, so here I am. I'm signing into the IDE. And in just a moment, you're going to notice that my customized settings are being pulled down and applied to the IDE. You'll see here that I've now switched to the light theme, which is my preferred theme. And I also have a few other things that I like to keep my environment with. I actually like line numbers on by default, and I've increased my editor font for presenting. And also, I use the enhanced scroll bar in its wide mode, which I'll show you in a little bit. And you'll now see in the upper right-hand corner that the IDE knows who I am. You might be wondering, what settings does Visual Studio roam with my Microsoft account? Well, let's use Quick Launch, which is Control-Q in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to start typing in Synchronize Settings. And I'm going to select the Synchronize Settings option to open up Tools Options to show you which settings actually roam with your account. You'll see here in the Tools Options dialog that I can actually disable roaming settings if I choose not to use it, or I could just pick and choose some of these categories that I might want or not want. You'll notice that things like your themes, your fonts and colors, maybe any custom key bindings that you set up, or any special settings you have for the text editor roam with your account. Now, there are actually more in this dialog. Control-E, you might notice, takes you up to the new search box in the Tools Options dialog. And from up here, I can now search from within the dialog. So if I search for something like fonts and colors, it'll bring up the fonts and colors page for me. And since this page actually has a lot of information on it, and this scroll bar is actually pretty long, I can now resize Tools Options to see pages like the fonts and colors page, or even the keyboard page, which also has some large scrolling regions, a lot easier. Many of you have installed our updates from Visual Studio 2012, and you most likely found out about the update from a balloon that popped up in the lower right-hand corner of the Windows task tray. And while this method was effective at letting developers know when updates were available, notifications were easily missed or ignored. So in 2013, we've introduced a notifications hub. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner, next to Quick Launch, I have a flag, and the flag has the number 3 next to it. And if I hover over the flag, you'll see I have 3 new notifications in my hub. And since you now don't have to wait for things like service packs, updates are your mechanism for both features and fixes, and you'll be able to find them here easily in the hub. So let's go and take a look inside the hub. You'll notice that I have 3 notifications in my hub. They're marked with the new status. And as I hover over the notifications, I get a tooltip. The tooltip tells me when they were created. It also tells me when they will expire. And they also tell me the severity of notifications. So the 3 notifications I have in my hub are actually informational. And you'll also notice other notifications. Maybe they'll be yellow, which is important, or red, which will be critical. A notification that might be critical could actually keep you maybe from using the IDE. Maybe something about your subscription that you need to go and adjust before you can continue working. The notifications that you'll see show up in this hub are things like any updates you have to extensions you have installed, or product updates, or even samples. Now, if I click on this notification to install the Windows Azure SDK, you'll notice that we take you to the place where you can make the action. The notifications hub will never auto-install anything for you. From here, I could go and update or actually install this SDK, but if I choose to close out of this window, you'll notice that the notification remains in my hub because I didn't actually take the expected action here. Now, if I didn't actually care about this first extension update, I could simply go and dismiss it, and then we'll never notify you again about that extension until there's a new update, for example. And now you'll see as I click away from the notification center, it actually collapses onto the right, and it stays out of my way, so it doesn't actually block any of the code that you're working with. And you can kind of think of this notification center as a to-do list for your environment, and you can revisit it at any time when you have a chance. So the next thing I want to talk a little bit about are some of the visual design updates we've made in Visual Studio 2013. In 2013, you'll now notice that you're able to sign into the IDE right when you launch Visual Studio for the first time after you've installed it. At this point, you can choose to sign in with your Microsoft account, or you can select Not Now, maybe later, and continue as you always have in previous versions of Visual Studio. Now, we're providing you with more choice up front. So you can see here that I've chosen to log in with my Microsoft account, and now I'm able to select the development settings that I prefer, and also one of the new color themes. Now, you'll notice that this list is an alphabetized list, and we really just want to make sure that you choose the best theme for you up front, and that you're happy with working in. We have 3 themes in Visual Studio 2013. For those of you who have used 2012, you may have noticed that we have a light and dark theme included in the product. But in 2013, we've introduced the blue theme. So in addition to the 3 themes that I just showed you, we enhanced a lot of the look and feel of the IDE based on a lot of feedback that we heard. You wanted more color, so we added additional color throughout the IDE. One good example is our new folder color. It's now a gold color that you're already familiar with when using Windows. We also wanted you to better be able to distinguish and recognize icons, so we went and cleared up some of the concepts of some of our icons. We also added more contrast across the IDE. You'll now notice in the lower right-hand corner that we have better segmentation between different regions in the IDE. You'll see this by the line that's around this Solution Explorer tool window. And now you should be able to more easily find that sort of dragging point where you can go and resize things to make them bigger or smaller. And we've also improved the contrast color in a lot of our menus as well. So you'll now notice that you can actually see the selection that you're on in the menu. And you'll also find that our scroll bars now have a better disabled state, so you know where your focus is as you're using the IDE. Now the next thing I want to show you doesn't actually demo very well, but I do want to call it out as being an important improvement for Visual Studio 2013. We know from our telemetry data that a lot of you are using Visual Studio on newer devices with high-dense screens. I'm actually using an Ultrabook here with a 221 DPI setting, which is a 200% scaling factor. And in this release, we really wanted to invest in making Visual Studio look great on those high-dens screens. You'll see here that previous versions of Visual Studio had some issues with scaling, where icons weren't actually legible. And some of these checkboxes, for example, in the Import and Export Settings wizard, were very hard to click on. And another great example is the Project Properties page. These regions are text boxes. So each and every team in Visual Studio had a hand in making Visual Studio look great on high-dens screens. We fixed over 200 high DPI bugs in the product, in the cases like clip text or icons that weren't very legible. And we're not done, and we're going to continue to enhance the development experience with these high-dens screens in coming releases. We want you to really be able to design and build software on all form factors and all displays with Visual Studio. In Visual Studio 2012, we focused a lot on streamlining some of the experiences within the editor. We also wanted you to be able to better understand and focus on your code. So the new Find dialog in 2012 was a great example of that. Now in 2013, we've continued to focus on better understanding your code and think of things like navigation and understanding your code in place without having to open up a lot of files. Now with every release, we take a hard look at what's popular in our productivity power tools, and we choose to bring in the top 3 into the product. Now the first one I want to show you is called auto brace completion. So if I start typing a new method here, and as soon as I hit the first brace, the second brace will auto-complete for me. This will save you time, will close your braces for you, and it'll help you write more correct code. Now, also move line up and down, hold down the Alt key, and use the up arrow or the down arrow. This is really useful when refactoring maybe one line of code or a whole block of code. I can highlight several lines and move those around as well, like this. You may have noticed that I'm actually using the enhanced scroll bar. On the right side, you'll see that it has several annotations within the scroll bar. You'll see that the blue line across identifies where my caret position is. You'll also see some other red colors in here, a maroon and a sort of a true red here. The maroon identifies where I have breakpoints set, and the red color identifies that I have some errors in my code. These annotations should be used to help you find and fix things a lot faster in the IDE. Think of it, where was that breakpoint that I set earlier? Now to customize the enhanced scroll bar, I simply right-click on the scroll bar and head down to scroll bar options. And then I can pick and choose the way I'd like my enhanced scroll bar to be shown. If you've used Navigate 2 before, you may have recalled that this was a modal dialog. And we wanted to really improve this experience by giving you a real-time preview of what you're actually looking at here. All right, if I head back to my shopping cart and Control comma on top of shopping cart, you'll notice that the new Navigate 2 experience is found in the upper right-hand corner, similarly to the Find and Replace experience. Now, I can easily use my cursor, my arrows to move between these items, and you'll notice that if I don't have one of these items open, we'll actually open them in the purple Preview tab for you without cluttering your document well. And now when I'm done with the new Navigate 2 experience, I can simply hit Escape to exit out of it and get back to where I was in my code. Now imagine that you've just taken on a new code base and you're trying to figure out what's going on in it, and you just want to easily understand it without spending too much time. Now I've put my cursor over the main page view model, and using Alt F12 as the shortcut, you'll notice that this new peek window opens up right in line with my code. And what it does is it pushes my code out of the way to make room for the window. You'll notice that inside the peek window I have some very rich information. I have all the great colorization that comes with my code. You'll also notice that I have the enhanced scroll bar enabled in the peek window, since it is such a small window by default. Now inside the peek window, I can click on other objects within my code and Alt F12 on those. And you'll notice that I now have a breadcrumb that shows me where I've come from and how to get back there if I choose. And there's also some shortcuts for these as well. Now, if I want to open this file, I can simply select the Promote to Document, and this will move it up to the document well for me to begin doing other things with it. I can now edit within the window, and I can also resize the window as well to make it as big as I want. sometimes we know it's hard to find out what's been happening in your code. Similarly to how GPS gives you a heads up on directions and speed zones, CodeLens gives you a heads up on what's happening in your code. Think of CodeLens like a GPS for your code. Now, in this file, I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you. You'll notice right above that line 19, I have two code lenses here available to me. The first one are references of where I'm calling the main page view model, and the second one are unit tests that are associated with this method. Now, holding down the Alt key, I can access the shortcuts to these methods. Alt F2 will bring up the references dialog above it, and then I can hit Enter to open it up and take a look inside of it. Now, Escape closes the code lens. Now, Alt F3 brings up my unit tests, and I get a really rich view here of what the state of my unit tests are. And again, I can use the up and down arrow and select one of these unit tests to open it. There's a bunch of other code lenses that are actually enabled. If we go up to Quick Launch and access the code lenses and tools options, you'll see here that there's a handful of other code lenses that are available. I could see things like the authors of a file, maybe even some of the change sets for them, and I could even see some of the code reviews as well. Now, this is enabled when your project is hooked up to Team Foundation Server. So you can see that TFS has a lot of rich information to offer you, and you can see all these options right from within your code, right in line in these code lenses. Now, the last thing I just want to call out is we've still continued to invest in areas like solution loading, IDE startup, and responsiveness. One of the best ways for you to give us feedback and even send us very detailed reports that can help us prioritize our performance improvements is to go up to Help, down to Customer Feedback Options. And in this dialog, if you select the Yes, I'm willing to participate, this is the easiest way for you to give us feedback. And like I said, a lot of our performance improvements we've made in 2013 and 2012 have come from data that you shared with us. And we use this data to determine where to make investments and then analyze it and act on it. Now, if you have some other very quick feedback that you want to send us, you can head up to the upper right-hand corner next to Quick Launch and the Notifications badge, and you'll see a feedback bubble. And from within here, you can either choose to send us a smile or send a frown. And if you send us a smile, you can include a few details on what you liked and also include a screenshot as well. This video only scrapes the surface of all the new developer productivity enhancements that we've made in Visual Studio 2013. What I showed you here should help you get started quickly, whether you're a new or seasoned Visual Studio user. As I mentioned at the beginning, look for more developer productivity videos such as the Connected IDE, Peek, and CodeLens. These videos will go deeper into the new enhancements that we've made in Visual Studio 2013. So go out and try Visual Studio 2013 and tell us what you think.